Hi, this is Ben.
This is Lisa.
This is Adrian.
This is Chris.
This is Clive, the Wood-Fired Oven Chef, and you are listening to the Wood-Fired Oven Podcast with Mark Gostin.
Welcome to part 2 of the amazing factory tour with Ben Guilford at the Firebrick Company. If you haven't checked out part 1 of this mini-series, I encourage you to head on back through the back catalogue, which is only a few episodes ago, and take a listen to part 1. It's an amazing adventure through Ben's incredible factory. We left the last episode with Ben chatting about the wonderful messages that he receives from his customers, and they put them up on their wonderful thank you wall. Let's kick off with part 2 and see if we can get lost in Ben's amazing factories.
You must be very thankful for Instagram because there are so many D105s and food getting pumped out of Instagram.
Absolutely. In America, we actually only just started paying for advertising.
Really?
We had never paid, so we're doing some Google ads.
Yeah, nice.
But we had, up until now, we had never done any advertising. Yeah. We had people on social media, like posting about our stuff. We had YouTube videos that people would watch, and we had a basic website. Yeah. And that's how we made our sales, and we didn't have to pay for any advertising. And now we're pushing a little bit now because we want to grow that market. Yeah. But Chris Vozzo's classic.
Oh my gosh, that guy pumps out so much food.
It is insane. Like every week, at least, I will have something from Chris that I'll post up on our Instagram.
And it's fantastic. There you go, Chris.
Like, I only need like 1 or 2 Chris Vozzos, and our advertising is covered.
I today, Chris is such a lovely guy too. Looking forward to chatting to him.
So, all right, we'll go out the back of the... so, again, every single area is utilised. There's not a lot of wasted space.
No.
And you can't. When you're a small business...
Oh, for sure.
Unless you're independently wealthy somehow.
Tremel tools.
Some Tremels.
This was great, man. How could you build a dome that perfect without using Tremel tools?
I mean, my dad, when he built his first oven, big pile of sand, brick over the sand, pull the sand out.
Did he? Really?
Pretty messy. Pretty gross. And so... These are just, there's probably, usually we make about 200 at a time now, so this will just be some ones waiting to go into boxes. Oh yeah, big bag. What we're seeing here, so we're up on a mezzanine, and we've got pallets and pallets of components. So D95 flue box.
Oh yeah, right.
You know, we might have 200 of those packed and ready to go. Inside this box, there'll be a flue. Yeah. There'll be chicken wire. There'll be the D95 templates, and there'll be the Tremel tool, and it's all in here as an assembly ready to go in the kit.
And all of that assembly is done right.
This is just where we're storing.
Okay,
I'll take you to where we make it. So we'll move on. So this is a storage area, and again, the idea is rather than making everything to order, we have, I would say, at least 100 of every component at any one time ready to go. So we do big runs of things. So say making oven doors. Yep. Usually it's a run of 400. Yep. So we get all the laser cutting for 400 doors, and we weld up 400 doors, and then we finish off 400 doors, and then we put them in storage, and that way we get good efficiency in the process, and everyone gets their eye in very quickly. Yeah. So is it easy?
I mean, okay, so I'm looking at a lot of product here. I don't know, there might be 20 big pallets here. Yep. How do you maintain control over these different batches of so you got a problem with a door, you get a problem with a flue, and it heads off to the States.
In terms of batch control is not something that we've done, particularly now that we have, because I guess the paint would have been the one big one where we're like, we've had a faulty X. Yeah. And the only thing that could go wrong is that paint. Yeah. Whereas everything else, we don't have things that are none of the things in these pallets are going to degrade. Yeah. So they don't have a shelf life. Okay. What we do in terms of managing inventory is we have a pretty complex piece of software that keeps track of everything that we have. It tells us exactly how many of everything.
Great.
And there's months and months. We could talk about that for half an hour.
Did you design that too, did you?
No, actually I have. No, I did. I had a system that I created that would tell me what I needed to buy and when. I spent about 3 months designing this massive mother of all spreadsheets. I think it was 125 meg spreadsheet.
Oh, you're joking.
And there were no images or anything. It was just data.
Really?
Anyway, this is a fascinating conversation for your listeners.
That's all right. But you've upgraded now, have you?
So we've upgraded to, we've got a system, there's sort of a paid piece of software, like a monthly subscription, and that helps us stay on top of everything that we have, but also tells us when we need to buy things.
Yeah,
So there's
okay.
trigger points.
Yep.
When all right, you need to order this now. And so we can modify all that to make sure that we stay ahead, particularly in these days of like supply chain issues, which are just...
Has that been a challenge for you?
Oh my word, yes.
Yeah,
Far out. It's been ferocious.
Yeah.
So for us, when COVID kicked in, firstly I thought, well, we're in trouble now because we sell, I think it's a beautiful product. And it's a lovely thing to have, but you don't have to have one to live.
Sure.
And so part of me thought, well, like people are going to stop spending money because there's so much uncertainty. People will stop spending money, and the first thing they stop spending on is dispensable stuff like wood-fired ovens.
Yeah.
Well, that I reckon it felt like that for about a month. And then it just went insane.
Did it?
Oh, it was nuts. I think our sales went up 75%.
Oh, you're joking.
Yeah, it was wild.
Isn't that
Which
amazing?
is amazing. Like,
what a blessing that would have been.
Oh, far out, yes. So we went hammer and tongs. And so, thankfully we had a huge buffer of raw materials to work with.
Yeah.
But even then, we still ran out by the end of that year. So that was like March 2020. And by the end of 2020, we ran out. End of November, we had no bricks left.
Is that right?
Yeah, we had by January we had 150 orders in the system waiting. So it arrived like just after Christmas. The stock arrived on holidays.
Gosh.
Anyway,
on holidays.
Yeah. Boss never gets a holiday.
No.
Anyway, and then we got cracking. We turned out 150 ovens in less than 3 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. The team were pretty awesome.
That is pretty awesome. What's this gorgeous smell I'm smelling?
Would be,
I reckon, glue.
I do love glue.
It does smell quite nice.
Let's go and find out.
It's a gorgeous
What
smell.
am I smelling?
You might be immune to it then.
It's the fiberglass.
Is it?
And I love the smell of fiberglass. Now,
it's lovely.
The guys will have masks on.
Okay, but
because
we're just getting a whiff of it, but
you
it is
love
nice.
the smell of fiberglass. It's not something that you want to inhale all day. But the smell, it smells like progress, doesn't it?
It does smell like progress.
Nathan.
Hi Nathan, how are you?
He's our leading hand, doing a terrific job. So here they are.
So we're back where the domes are getting made.
Correct.
So how long does this particular process take to create these domes?
So in terms of, Steve, how long would it take you to do a full run?
So Steve's wearing a massive mask and you're asking me a question.
Yeah.
So here we go.
By myself, about 2 hours.
Yep.
With two of us, just over an hour.
Yeah.
Okay, and how many will you produce in that time?
12.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty efficient.
Oh yeah, he doesn't muck around.
No, he doesn't muck around.
But it's a process of you wax the dome first. So you wax the mold, then you mix up some resin, which we have in the background. So that's a fiberglass resin with a hardener. Then you roll it into your fiberglass mat, and then you lay that onto the mold, and then you roll it out. You get all the bubbles.
Gotcha. Right. Okay.
I was very, very fortunate to learn how to fiberglass at a friend. Well, he wasn't a friend at the time. He was a supplier, Rodney of Metamorphosis. He let me come and use his workshop for 5 months.
Oh, you lucky thing.
Right? And he taught me how to fiberglass. He taught me how to spray paint. And he helped me to get our first set of molds made for making the ovens.
Right.
So let's go and have a look at that.
Okay, let's do it.
We'll enter the...
Stop raining.
Isn't that nice?
Isn't it nice?
So we're at the back now, and these two factories that we're behind, we don't actually lease these ones.
Okay.
But we're on terrific terms with them.
Oh,
and so they've
good to have good neighbours.
We try to take care of everyone, and they're so lovely. They've lent us the spaces, and so we've set them up, to do a whole bunch of stuff. So right there, we just got a bunch of brick storage.
Yep.
Nothing too exciting happening there.
Okay.
In here, so we're now in a covered area, and we have our brick saw.
So you do all your own cutting. So
yes.
you're not manufacturing the bricks themselves. You purchase those.
We bring in. So nobody makes fire bricks in Australia anymore.
Don't they?
No, there used to be, in Victoria alone, there were 7 manufacturers of fire bricks some time ago. Like this,
really,
is a few decades ago. And now the thing with making fire bricks is you need a mine. So you've got a mine that's got to have fire clay in it. So you mine the clay, and then you grate it and you press it into molds, and then you fire it in a massive tunnel kiln. And
it's a big effort.
It's a whole thing. But here's the thing: you need a big area.
Yeah.
You need a mine. Well, nowadays, if you've had a look at real estate pricing around Melbourne, it's much more valuable as housing than it is as a fire clay mine. So they basically all shut down and have been built over.
Right. Okay.
And so We bring in the vast majority of our bricks from Thailand.
Yep. They are gorgeous bricks, though.
Yeah.
I mean, before I bought my D105, I bought some refractory bricks to build a small barbecue thing. Never got built. I've still got a couple of the square bricks around. They're not that good.
Yes.
Yours are quite different.
I'm
yours
so
are
fussy.
Yours are
man.
incredibly high quality fire bricks.
It took me a very, very long time to
Yeah.
find the right supplier, and because we are so heavily focused on quality.
Yeah.
I remember an early container that I had delivered from a supplier. I basically took it to the tip.
Did you?
I opened the doors and I was
Yeah.
greeted with disappointment.
What a shame.
And I was just like, it was a new supplier. It was a sample. They said, here's the thing: if anyone out there is thinking about starting a business importing materials, go for it. But be aware they'll send you samples.
Yeah.
And the samples will look really good, like by mail.
Of course,
just little
nice.
pieces. They look
the
great.
best of the best.
Then you get a 20-foot container delivered, and there's a chance that it might be something very different, and that's just part of it.
Yeah.
I
You
think
have to accept it,
I
do
went
you?
through 7 manufacturers before I found the one that I stuck with.
Is that right? Really?
Very expensive process that one
I
was.
bet it was.
So,
But these are gorgeous.
Yeah, they're beautiful brick. They're really well made, very dense. You're looking for like a nice high pitch sound. So when they knock together, you don't want a dull thump. That tells you you've got a brick that's relatively soft.
Okay.
You're looking for, and if I had a little hammer, we could tap and they make a ping, a high pitch pinging sound.
Yep.
And that's when you know you've got a really well fired, hard material. But I'm looking for really sharp edges.
Yep.
Sharp corners.
Yep.
And I want a good looking brick.
They're just gorgeous. And when the flame is licking up those bricks, it is just outstanding. I mean, it's gorgeous. It's nice to see them like this. Is it quite difficult to cut them so precise?
Well, here's the thing. We do a lot of cutting, but we also have spent an inordinate amount of money on making moulds. So our supplier in Thailand has made custom moulds for our bricks. So I'm an engineer, so I draw everything in CAD.
Yeah.
I love CAD.
Yeah.
Computer-aided design for the uninitiated.
Yes.
And so I'll do a 3D model of the brick that I want, and I send it to them, and I say, hey guys, how much is it going to cost for you to make a mould to stamp tens of thousands of this brick?
Yeah, right.
They give me a price. I have a small heart attack.
Yes.
And then I hand over the money.
And you hit the buy now.
Well, I either make the decision to yes, we'll pay that, and they'll make that shape for us, or no, we'll take a brick and we'll continue cutting them.
Yeah.
And so it's looking at doing that cost analysis of is this worth doing? We can cut them, but cutting bricks is, I'm not going to say a dangerous process, but it's loud.
Yeah.
It's dusty. It's got a big spinning blade involved.
Yeah.
And
so if you don't have to do it,
if I don't have to do it,
but it's
and
cost
particularly
effective,
if I get a mould made, and let's say the Type 1 bricks in the kit.
Yep.
In the D105, there's 120 of them.
Yep.
Right. So it would make really good sense for us to have a mould for that, because I think right now we've got like 45,000 in stock. Right now, if we had to cut all of those, heavens to Betsy. Well, no, when I started the business, I didn't have any moulds, so I would have standard sized bricks. And my dad came down for a week, right? And he stayed at my place, sleeping on the floor.
Oh,
and
thanks, Dad.
Thanks, Dad.
Thanks, Dad.
Because for 5 days, Dad got on the saw 8 hours a day and cut bricks. And by the end of the week, we had enough bricks to make, I think it was 10 ovens.
Is that right?
From a week of cutting. Wow. It was just nuts. Like,
oh my gosh.
Because there's so much cutting involved.
Yeah.
And so now we have it down where most of our bricks are being pressed into very accurate molds. So they're coming to us perfect.
All done. That's great.
But there's still some bricks that need cutting.
Okay.
So what we're cutting here is the entry arch.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so you'd be familiar with, when you look into your oven, where the opening meets the dome, there's actually, the bricks are ground into a curve.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
That is something we do here.
Okay.
So we start off by cutting the rough curve. So we cut each brick. You see this brick's got a mark on it.
Yes, okay.
And we've got a jig set up here so that each brick comes out the same.
Okay.
And so someone's going to cut like 200 of these.
Right.
Shortly.
Okay.
But you see, a saw does not cut a curve.
And it does not.
It's going to cut a straight
and
line.
that looks like a curve.
That's a curve, right?
The line on the brick.
What are you doing, Ben?
Yeah, I know.
And so we're going to cut it roughly, and then we have a pretty rad jig. If I do say so myself.
Did you build us?
I've got to find it. We've still got it. It's around. No. So it's a diamond grinder, and it grinds the curve into the back of the brick.
Does it?
And I will be physically impossible to explain it to your listeners.
But it does work.
We call it the Velocigrinder, right? It's another
I love it.
another rad name.
Oh, that is a rad name, Ben. That's great.
And so we've got the Velocigrinder, and so we start off, we cut these bricks, but then we grind them.
Yeah, right.
And that's, again, sort of it's probably a good example of like the effort that we go to.
Oh, yeah.
It's very difficult. Occasionally someone, when I was on the phone as a salesperson, someone would ask, why should I buy your oven? Why is yours better? And it's a hard question to answer because it's so involved. But I would say, well, if you had a look at that and look at the sheer level, the lengths that we're going to try and make this the best possible product that we can.
Yeah.
I think
it's incredibly well engineered. There's no doubt about it. My gosh.
Well, I'll try and find you the Velocigrinder so you can see it.
Okay, let's have a look.
So we've got in here. This is like the engine room.
This is about the 30-second
you should
huge
take a photo
room.
of this.
That is a gorgeous room. Okay, so we're looking at rows and rows of red things and white things.
Wow,
they look like molds to me.
Great describing.
Yeah, thank you,
Mark. Really good.
Thank you. I worked hard on that.
What you're looking at, I'm not entirely sure how many there are. I've got this all in a CAD model somewhere, but we've got about 50 shaker tables. So you'll see these steel frames, small sort of shin height frames. With rubber feet, and they've got an orange motor on each one, and that's a vibrating motor. Right? So if we go over to one of these and we turn this on,
it's jumping around.
It's dancing around, right?
Wow.
It's vibrating quite aggressively, and you're like, well, what are these all about? So on top of those steel frames, we bolt down our fiberglass molds.
Okay.
Right? Now, what we're looking at here, all of our molds are two-part molds. The castings that we're making are, man, they're complicated shapes.
Oh, yeah, they're
not
good.
simple. Like if we were casting simple rectangles, I could do that.
That'd be easy, wouldn't it?
It'd be easy.
You could do a rectangle oven.
Just do a box, and then you just tip it out, and it will fall out, right? But what we're making has tongue and groove joins. It's got three-dimensional curves going on. It's complex.
Yeah.
So it's a two-part mold.
Okay.
So these molds bolt together. So we got like high-speed rattle guns where we can do up the molds. So that in each of these molds, there's 10 bolts holding the two parts together.
Okay.
So we take this part here.
Goodness
comes
me.
up. You'll see this
Okay.
blocks on there.
Yep.
Bolts hold it together.
Yes.
And now we can pour the refractory concrete through this
that's what we're
opening at the
doing.
top. And then we vibrate the living daylights out of it to get all the bubbles out of it.
Okay.
Right?
So that's why you have to jiggle it.
That's why we have to jiggle it. Because when you pour concrete, and you'd be familiar with this from
I had to get
doing
some
your stand.
vibration motor thing.
Yes.
And that was amazing. All these bubbles just appeared from nowhere.
If you've never poured concrete before, you might think, it comes as like a soup, and you just pour it into a mold, and it fills the mold like water.
Yeah.
But when you get concrete, it is thick, and it necessarily so. It needs to be thick. The more water you add to a concrete mix, the weaker it becomes.
Really?
Right? So you actually want to minimise the amount of water that you're putting into your concrete.
Gotcha.
In order to ensure you've got the highest strength part.
Yeah.
And so the same goes for refractory concrete.
Okay.
We can have a whole chat about refractory concrete. But refractory concrete, we want to mix that up to a consistency that we can pour, but we don't want it any wetter than that.
Okay.
Because when we make these, we pour these molds.
Yep.
We might pour them in the morning.
Yep.
And they will have set hard enough to pop out of the molds by late afternoon.
Is that right?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
We have a test process that we use to make sure they are hard enough.
Yeah.
It's called a Schmidt hammer for the nerds out there.
Schmidt hammer.
Don't go out and buy a Schmidt hammer, you don't need one.
Okay.
But I think I started the business primarily to buy tools.
Dude, cool tools.
As an excuse to buy tools.
You're just like a living Bunnings workshop here.
All right. So we have a whole heap of these molds. And look, when I started...
Did you build all these yourself?
Yeah, I
right?
made all of them. I've made like everything in here. I didn't
that's
make the
amazing.
motors,
Yeah.
but all the frames, all the welding, all the design is all something.
And are you pleased with how these work? They're functioning exactly as designed?
Yeah. Well, see, here's the thing. You're like, how did you come up with this? I was working as an engineer before I started the business, right? And I'd studied aerospace and mechanical engineering, did really well. I had a couple of internships at aerospace companies. They wanted me to come back. But when I graduated, it was the global financial crisis. And they were firing people left and right.
Oh, boy.
One of the places I did an internship with fired half of their staff.
Oh, geez,
So there was no work.
There's nothing.
So I went into civil. And specifically, I went into sort of roads and bridges. And I worked for a company, started with Fulton Hogan, which is a New Zealand company.
Kiwi company.
Yes,
Go the Kiwis.
Go the Kiwis. And then I moved to Abbey Group. And at Abbey Group, I was the precast engineer for the Peninsula Link Freeway, which is quite a large freeway project down towards Mornington, which you should visit.
Is
actually
it
while you're
worth
here.
a look,
It's beautiful.
Is it?
It's a lovely part of Victoria.
Lovely.
So, my job was the precast, managing all of the precast beams, the things that you're driving over. When you go over a bridge, those are my beams.
Oh, they're your beams. Beams.
Barriers, panels, piles, if it was precast, that was my
all of
responsibility.
that stuff is precast. Okay, so I can see where you're going here.
So basically, I was out at these precast yards, and I remember walking around thinking, what am I doing here? All of my colleagues are working on the bridges themselves. And that was where I thought I should be, thinking, like, that's my path to to climbing the ladder, to moving on to being from a site engineer to being a project engineer to being a manager. And they were all on that path. They were all getting this experience. And here's me out at the dusty precast yard on the outskirts of Melbourne going, what am I doing here? Like, it was kind of depressing. And I just remember thinking, how is this possibly benefiting me in the long run? Well, I'll tell you how. I got like 2 full years of exposure and learning in how to do precast.
Fantastic.
Precast concrete. And this is the same, it's the same thing, that the material is slightly different. It's still a concrete. You mix it with water, it reacts, the cement reacts and it sets hard. It's the same process. So I got this fantastic exposure and experience in casting.
And here it is today.
And here it is.
And we're looking at it.
I mean, I tell you, the first shaker that I made was pretty dodgy.
Was it?
It was. It was an old bench grinder. And I had put a weight on one of the wheels. I'd secured a weight to unbalance it, and it would dance around. And the thing was, I'd welded it into a little dinky little metal cabinet, and the whole cabinet would move across the floor. So you had to pin it in place with one foot, and then you're pouring with the other hand.
Oh my gosh!
And so this cabinet's trying to get away from me. And I remember one time the welds let go, and I just heard this bang, 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 and I turned it off, and the motor has just come off. The motor is detached.
Oh no!
But I was halfway through the pour of this part. It was a flue gallery. And I had to weld it back in before the castable setting. It was a whole thing.
Gosh.
So anyway.
Well, these look very well bolted to the floor with big rubber feet, with huge vibration motors on them.
Correct. And the idea is we want to vibrate the parts really thoroughly to get all the bubbles out so that we're making a dense part. We don't want little voids in it. That will make it weaker. Now, if we had a little void in it, it won't make it explode. And that's actually a really interesting thing about the refractory castable that we use is if you come over here, the boys are doing some work on the moulds. We may be able to see something. Here we go. We've got a washout tub.
Okay, so we're looking at a big blue tub. Inside it, we've got slurry of something.
It looks like a murky water, right?
Does.
This is where we've washed out the buckets that we use to pour the castable.
Right.
And you see, we've got this hair. It's like this plastic, very, 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 very fine fibres, right? This is actually plastic. And they're incredibly fine filaments of plastic. And the idea is they set, when your castable sets, it has all these tiny, tiny filaments of fibre through it. When you fire the oven, those filaments will melt and burn out. And what's left behind is micro tunnels through the casting. Tiny little paths that air or water could get out of.
Is that right?
So, because if you had normal concrete and you had a void in the middle of it, and somehow that void, let's say over 5 years, it got full of water. And then you heated that up to 500 degrees, that will become steam, and it will literally explode.
Right?
And that's why your castings, and again, this is some pretty nerdy stuff for your listeners, but
I didn't know. This is very interesting,
all refractories are designed to be porous.
Interesting.
They're all porous. And the reason, there's a couple of reasons, but one of them is to allow for, if you had a pocket in a casting, for example, Well, when you heat it up, there's somewhere
Okay.
for that air
There's
to
a
go,
passage
to
for it to
expand
go.
into
Okay.
without causing any damage.
Okay, right.
So anyway,
Interesting. That's very interesting.
Um,
Okay. So it looks like we're at the Ferrari factory here.
Yeah, it's red. We like red.
Well,
the
red
molds
is
are all
good.
red. No, well, the
Why are they
reason for
red?
the red is it's called tooling gel coat. So I mentioned the boat before, and they're often white. So white is a standard gel coat.
Yep.
Nothing wrong with it. Tooling gel coat is much harder wearing.
Okay.
So I mentioned before, like
Yeah.
we could get 200 parts out of one of these molds over a lot of time, obviously. And the reason we can do that is they're made with a very hard wearing gel coat, because when you pour refractory concrete in, you're basically pouring in like wet sandpaper.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
it's trying to abrade the mold.
Yep.
It's trying to wear into it. And so if you look at some of our really old ones, so say over here, these molds have been going for quite a while.
Yeah.
And so you see we've actually like worn
It has.
through
It
there.
started to worn it out on the top there.
Right?
So how many uses would you get out of this before you start to get a little bit?
This one's still fine, but it is getting towards the end of its life, where we will swap it out and pop in a new one.
Well, that's very impressive in here.
Well, and the team over here are actually working on reconditioning molds.
Okay.
So these are molds that have been in rotation for a while.
Yes.
They'll pull them out, they'll clean them, they'll look for any defects,
Yeah.
polish them,
Okay.
and,
Put them back
and
into
set
production.
them up
Yeah.
ready to be back in production. Now, before we leave this room, I'll point out a couple of other things.
Yeah.
We've got overhead gantry cranes.
Yes.
So we're not doing any heavy lifting.
Yep.
So everything that needs to be lifted is lifted by crane. The smaller parts, we actually have trolleys. I've designed trolleys that you just push up against the mold,
Okay.
and just pull the mold onto it.
Okay.
It's at the same
They're
height.
not radio control. You can't sit in your
one
office
day,
and
one day. We'll have the robots.
You know, let's Amazon robots.
Then we come back here, and this is our mixer.
I think I saw
bought
this on YouTube.
I bought this on Grays Online.
Like all good tools.
Like everything. It's a 20-year-old, well, now it's probably 23 years old, concrete mixer.
Right.
The kind of thing that would be in a mini mix plant.
Yes.
Where if you get a mini batch of concrete, it would be mixed up in something like this. So this will mix 1 ton in about 5 minutes.
Goodness me.
Right? And it is a violent machine.
Is it?
I love it. But when I got it, it was a rusty pile of junk. And so I spent about 3 months restoring it, fully stripped it apart. I spent, I don't know how long, chiseling old concrete out of it. I've rebuilt the gearbox,
The whole
everything.
works, have
And it
you?
taught me, I learned so much
Yeah.
from doing that.
Oh, was that a COVID project?
It was pre-COVID. It was
Pre-COVID project. Wow.
Not far before COVID though.
So we're walking up the stairs to have a look into this beast of a machine.
So I'll just lift the hatch. You want to?
Oh my gosh.
So what you see in there is you've got this big cylindrical sort of pan,
Yeah.
about 1/2 a metre deep, and you've got this crazy black gearbox that's going to whip around in here and do the mixing. And you see they've got these blades on them,
Yes.
these mixing blades,
Yep.
and they're polished. From where? It's so
Is that
cool.
right?
It's so cool.
That is neat, isn't it?
I love it. Like when I got these were sharp. Those edges were not rounded like that, but they've just mixed so much material now.
It looks like
They've
a
got this
beast of
beautiful
a
rounding
machine.
to it. It is, and we've so I spent a lot of time setting this up. But this is like the heart of our casting operation.
Is it? Yeah.
When we first started, I was mixing everything in one of those orange cement mixers.
Oh, really?
You know, you put like 75 kilos
Yeah.
in. And it would mix. It would take about 10 minutes to mix up 75
A
kilos.
small batch, yeah.
Because we wanted it to be really dry.
Yeah.
You can mix up concrete very quickly if you're willing to make it really wet.
Okay.
But if you want a dry mix, not too wet. I'm not talking dry powdery.
Yeah.
But it's not a wet soup. It takes ages to mix it.
Right.
You need a lot of shearing force, and those mixers just don't have it.
Right.
So to upgrade, we upgraded in between those mixers. We upgraded to a mixer that would do about 150 kilos at a time. But we were still mixing for hours. If we wanted to do a run of, say, 5 P85 castings, we could mix for, I don't know, 4 hours. It was just because
Really?
it
A
wasn't very
long
fast
time.
either.
Yeah, right.
This thing
It's a beast.
is just a beast.
It's a beast.
So, yeah, absolutely love it. It's got, I'll see if I can turn it on.
Yeah, here we go.
So it's got a lot of safety interlocks.
Yeah.
So, for example, if we've got the hatch open right now.
You could literally fall into
I could
there.
fall into this, and if I was to turn it on and it ran, it would kill me. Like,
Yeah.
hopefully,
Very quickly.
So what we have is a cleaning mode. What are we low on? Door access open. I I know. So you see I've turned on the cleaning mode.
Okay, it's moving around slowly.
Correct. And what that allows us to do is we can clean everything. Because I told the guys, if you don't clean this properly, I'm going to kill you. No, wait, I'll take it back. Please clean it properly. Because I know how long I've laid on my back in this machine for hours cleaning it, and I said, guys, I want to make sure that I never ever have to do that again.
Absolutely.
So we're going to clean it really thoroughly each time we use it.
Yep.
And so we got the pressure washer. We can bring up here, and we can gurney all of this and make it just perfect.
Just beautiful.
So this is one of my favorite machines. Now, if I close this, it'll still keep running on safety mode.
Yeah.
So I'll turn that off, and then I'll start it again, and you'll see, if you have a look through this little hatch, you'll see actually how fast it goes.
Oh my gosh!
You see, like that would mess you up pretty bad.
Well, you'd be done by now.
Yeah. And the blades are whipping around in there, and they're only about 4 millimeters off the surface. So everything, it took me an entire day just to calibrate the blades so that they weren't going to touch the surface on the way around.
Oh my gosh.
They were just right. They weren't too high. They weren't too low. So all of these things has been a profound amount of work, but it's totally worth it.
Oh yeah, and the long term, absolutely.
Yeah. So
you said about a ton worth of product.
We mix up 650 kilos at a time. So we have bulk bags that are precisely 650 kilos.
Okay.
We have a gantry hoist here.
Comes over the top of the machine.
And it actually travels as well. You don't have to pull it. You just press a button. Right? That comes over the top. And then we have the blades of terror.
I was about to say.
Yeah.
They're going to mess you up.
Don't fall onto those. And you'll be pleased to hear, listeners, that you can't. They are out of reach. You can't fall onto the blades of terror. But basically, it's a bag breaker. So you lower the bag onto the blades. It opens the bottom, and all the dry mix falls into the mixer. Then we
You've thought of everything, haven't you? I mean, it's very clever stuff.
I would like to think I have, but I haven't. There's heaps of things I haven't.
This is incredibly innovative.
But the thing is, how I've like say. So this is a good example. Here, this thing. This is a little metal box with an open top.
Yep.
And the bottom of it has you may recognise those bars.
Oh, I do.
Bars out of
that looks like my Tuscan grill.
It looks like a Tuscan grill at the bottom, and it's sitting over the mixer, and that is how we put in the stainless steel fibres, right?
Okay.
It's a really good example because I think you were, when we were talking about maybe what we might discuss. It was like, well, how do you come up with the ideas? And it's very incremental.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we have to do is we need to put in stainless steel fibres into the castable. Okay. So all of our castings are not just refractory concrete. They're refractory concrete with 3% stainless steel fibres in them.
Why is that?
The best analogy of like refractory castable, it's called, think of it as refractory concrete, is normal concrete. So normal concrete is amazing in compression.
Yep.
So if you squish it, it's very, very strong. But if you were to make a long, slender piece of concrete, it snaps really easily.
Yeah, right.
Hopeless in tension and shear and bending.
Yep.
It's not strong in those. But what is steel.
Okay.
So you make a composite.
Okay, right.
You take your concrete, which is great in compression, and you put steel into it, and now you're getting both. You're getting something that's good in compression, but it's also good in bending.
Ah, fascinating.
Right?
Right.
And tension. The steel handles that element of the stress. So the stainless steel fibres that we put in the castings are there to give it tensile strength, tensile toughness.
Yeah.
Without that, the parts would just, if they got a crack in them, they would literally become two pieces.
Yeah, right. Okay.
But with the stainless steel fibres all through them,
there's a lot of science in here. There's a lot of science in here.
Yeah, and and you say, well, how'd you come up with that? Yeah. I made probably the dumbest thing I did was when I made my first, I think it was about 12 precast flue galleries. I made them with refractory castable, but at the time I wasn't aware of the stainless steel fibres. Now I knew about reinforcing. My background, I was well aware of reinforcing, but I wasn't aware that I could actually reinforce these parts.
Yeah.
Because if you put mesh, the stuff that you expect to see in concrete, big heavy mesh, if you put that into refractory concrete, it will actually cause cracking. Because the steel, even if it was stainless steel, when it's that diameter.
We're talking like that rebar mesh
rebar,
stuff.
yeah, the big
gotcha,
stuff.
gotcha. Yeah, right. So
piece
they would get really hot.
It would get hot, and what it would do when it gets hot is expand.
Ah, of course.
And when it expands,
it's going to crack.
It's going to crack the material around it because the material around it has a different expansion coefficient.
Gotcha.
So by using fibres, they're so thin. They're horrible little things. They're needles.
Yeah, I bet
right?
they are.
They're stabby.
Yeah.
But they're so thin that they don't create a cracking problem in their expansion.
Gotcha.
And I actually, I think a lot of engineering design is not like, some brilliant engineer came up with everything. It's they read up on what someone else had done. And someone has actually done a study. They did their PhD on the quantity of stainless steel fibres to put into refractory castable components that will yield you the highest strength.
Well, that was handy.
But exactly right.
Handy as that.
I'll give you away. It's 3%. It's 3%. Competitors put 3% in there.
That's awesome.
Anyway,
that's awesome.
Sorry, I digress. But so in terms of putting the stainless steel fibres into the mixer, what we used to have to do was we would get our box of fibres, basically needles. We would put on these very expensive puncture-proof gloves.
Yeah, right.
And then you would grab a handful of them and you would sprinkle them into the little hatch here in the mixer, which is completely safe, or I can't accidentally put my hand in there. We'd sprinkle them in slowly, and it would take about 8 minutes to put in all of the fibres.
Yeah.
And the puncture-proof gloves,
we're not so.
Puncture-proof-ish.
Oh, yeah.
And these are the best gloves we could get for the purpose, and you would still get a fibre getting through there.
Yuck.
So the reason, I guess, I came up with this system here, which is
the box, the big box on the top of the machine.
You dump your whole box of fibres into that. We've got a special chute to get them in there, so they're not reaching out and hurting my back or anything. And then I press a button and it vibrates the box and they sprinkle in through the grid
that's
in the bottom.
You meter it in.
And that's why, because otherwise you get lumps.
Yeah, right.
If you get a lump of needles in your mix, it's like this apple of like fibres.
Spiky.
And we don't want that to end up in a casting because that would be a horribly weak point.
Yeah, gotcha.
But the reason I developed that is I try and put myself in the process. So I came and helped out with Paul. Now, like I said, I used to have to do this all by myself.
Yes.
Now I have a fantastic team.
That's right.
But I still will come. You see, I'm filthy.
No, you are. You're dirty.
You're dressed up. You're very clean.
Well, I was coming to see Ben, wasn't I?
You look great. I am haggard. But like I came down and I was on the paw for about 3 weeks. We were doing it nearly every day.
Yeah.
And I jumped and I was like, right, I'll do the needles. I'm like, I hate this. This is horrible.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, what can I do? How can I improve this?
Yeah.
And that's how, we ask the guys every day. We have a meeting at the end of the day, and we say, hey, has anyone come across any hazards? So safety stuff. Is our first question, and we encourage. We don't want people to go, I won't say it. I'll get in trouble. So no. Tell me.
Yeah.
I want to hear about it. But also, have you thought of any ideas that might make things better, or is there a part of the work that's particularly annoying? Right, where you're like, if we could do this differently, it would be better.
Yeah.
And if they bring up something, we'll write it down. Marcus and I will have a weekly meeting, and we go, all right, how can we tackle that? How can we make that process better?
Yeah.
And maybe it's a giant project that will take months, or maybe it's a 5-minute thing that we can do very easily. So
good.
Anyway, that's
it's great. Yeah, it's great. So it becomes a more enjoyable place to work, a safer place to work. But I can see walking through this place that it's a big evolution.
Absolutely.
This did not happen on day one, 2011.
Not, no.
And for folks who haven't had the privilege to come here, it is a sizable place with a lot of incredible innovation. I'm very impressed.
Well, I love this thing. So we used to, when we were putting the water in the mix, we used to we had a bucket with a line in it, and you'd pull the water up to the line, and then you've got the right amount of water. So what we have here is a stainless steel hopper suspended from the ceiling.
Yep.
It's got a strain gauge that is holding it up, and we can measure to about, I think it's about 50 mil accuracy.
Really?
The amount of water we put in.
Genius.
And so we dose in the water into the hopper, we weigh it out perfectly.
Yep.
We get the mixer going, and we press a button, and it puts in the right amount of
so you're getting a very consistent result every single time.
Yeah, and we can train our team. Like, I don't need to, I'll say this, they don't have to come to me with all this experience in concrete.
Yeah.
Most of the guys who work here, they're young guys who are looking for some labouring work, And one of the things that I think they really enjoy, and I know Marcus and I really enjoyed, is teaching them.
Yeah, that's
like
great.
giving them skills that they didn't
Yeah.
have before.
Yeah.
Fiberglassing,
Oh.
welding, spray painting,
Brilliant.
all that stuff.
Yeah, it's great.
Anyway.
That's great.
All right.
All right.
So,
All right.
moving on.
Down the stairs again?
Back down the stairs.
Okay.
We'll be going into our main packing room. And I mean, I could talk to you in here for way too long.
That's all right.
Like this thing is a bucket washer.
Ben designed
made.
bucket washer.
So that sits on there.
Yeah.
And you just load see that little trigger there?
Yes.
You put your bucket on it, and it cleans it for you. It's like a giant
Only
version
one of
a
those
thing.
at home.
You know, behind the bar. Like behind a bar, you have a glass.
Oh, you put the glass and it
It's
whooshes and
like a giant version of that. If I could have bought one, I would have bought it. No one makes them.
Well, no, you're not going to find that on aisle 7 in Bunnings, are you?
No, you couldn't do it. Now that high-pitched noise in the background, listeners, is the massive air compressor, and so that supplies 3 of our factories with compressed air. So we've got them all linked together on this side.
Yeah, right.
So we got one big compressor supplying all of them.
And that's what we're looking at in the corner there underneath the stairs?
That's the holding tank, and this big orange
That's
beast
right
here.
there.
That's
Wow.
the
That is a
compressor
beast,
itself.
isn't it? My goodness.
So if we walk down here, you can see we've got castings. These were popped out this morning.
Okay.
So these were made yesterday.
With a big number 3 on the side of
Big
them. So what
number
does the
3,
3
well,
mean?
so we got 1, 2, and 3. Those are the shells.
Okay.
They're each numbered because each part is actually unique.
So they're all different
molds,
shapes.
These molds are only slightly. They're very similar, but the tongue and groove join on the sides is something that I made. Like it was CNC cut, but then it was finished by hand.
Was it?
Right, and so each mold has very slight differences.
Yep.
And so part of the instruction of building a P85 is you're going to set down your front casting, that big piece there, and then you're going to get your number 1 shell, and that starts on the left-hand side, and you work your way around.
So I'm just having a look at close-up view of these.
On the outside,
They're gorgeous, aren't they?
on the outside, you say they're gorgeous. They're horrible.
Oh,
on the outside, they look like a moon. On the inside,
Oh, look
they're
at
gorgeous.
that. That is incredibly
And that's
smooth.
from vibrating. That's
what it does,
So,
yeah?
so you see the outside of the mold. So this would have been the top.
Yep.
And all the bubbles have come to the surface.
Okay,
And
so
then some of them have
little
accumulated
crates,
here.
like
Little
on
craters.
top of the moon.
It looks like the moon. But on the inside, which would be the
That is
bottom of the part,
super smooth.
and that's the part that you end up seeing when the oven's finished. Perfect.
Yeah.
Smooth. And that's the
Gorgeous.
vibration. And like, if you're ever wondering if a part's been made with vibration, just look at the surface, and if it's full of pock marks and little holes, then it's probably just been troweled on over a mold. 'Cause
Okay.
it is much easier to make a single part mold and trowel the castable over the top.
Okay, right.
What's much harder is making a 2-part mold and vibrating it. But it's a better part.
Yeah.
It's a much better part. But yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about the heat retention properties. So next door to this oven, we've got one of your bricks.
Yep.
All right. So my D105 is fully built with these.
Yes.
What we're looking at here is obviously visually a very different product.
Yes.
Tell me about the heat properties of the brick versus the concrete.
Sure thing. Yeah. And it's a terrific question because I think a lot of the time people think, a cast product is inferior somehow, right? It's not as good. And so if you look at fire brick, and again, the best, I guess, example or way of understanding fire brick versus refractory castable is comparing normal bricks that you build a house with with concrete that you would pave your driveway with. They have some very similar properties, right? Once concrete sets, it's as strong as brick, right? They're just different.
Yeah.
So castable is very similar. It has very similar properties to a fire brick. So once castable sets, it has very similar density, very similar thermal conductivity,
Right.
and in the case of our castable, very similar compressive strength, right? So the difference is it's called in refractory circles, it would be called like a molded a molded refractory or unshaped refractory. So they say, or a brick, that's a shaped refractory. It comes to you in a finished shape.
Yep, gotcha.
Castable is an unshaped refractory. It still has all those refractory properties.
Yep.
It's just you can shape it how you like. Mix it up and pour it into a mold.
Gotcha.
Now, one of the things to be aware of is, in terms of the quality, castable is 5 times more expensive than fire brick.
Seriously?
And I don't think people would have
Really?
expected that.
Is
It
that
is
right?
so expensive because it's a complex material. And not to say that fire brick is cheap. Fire brick's expensive. But castable even before you add the labour required,
Yeah.
and molds and all that
Yeah.
stuff, it's
more
much more.
expensive.
It's orders of magnitude more expensive than fire brick because it is still quite a high tech material.
Okay.
And so the difference with our precast oven compared to the brick oven, and we've done a whole video on this.
Yeah.
One of the big differences, if you're just looking at sort of physical, the castings, let's say, the wall of your oven is 115 millimeters or 4.5 inches
Yep.
for your American
Yeah.
Freedom Unit.
Well
listeners.
done. Very good. Yes.
Is 4.5 inches of fire brick,
Yep.
right? Whereas the precast oven, you can see the castings.
Oh, yeah, right.
The shells are 65 mil thick.
Yeah, it's quite a difference, isn't it?
And the idea there is I could have made them 115 mil thick, but then they would take a huge amount of time to heat up. And what we were aiming for with the P85 was to make a smaller oven
Yeah.
that could heat up more quickly. And so the P85 takes an hour and 15 minutes to get to 400 Celsius, 750 Fahrenheit, whereas the D105 takes 2.5 hours to do the same thing.
Yep. Okay.
And the reason is you're heating up less material in the P85. It's not that castable heats up faster.
yeah.
There's just less of it.
Does that affect the retained heat properties on day two?
It does,
Yep.
absolutely. And so if you look at your D105,
Yep.
your oven to cool from, say, 400 Celsius down to 70 Celsius, it's going to take around 72 hours to do that with the door in and the fire out.
That's amazing. I love this.
And I love it too. Like,
it's
so
great.
the P85, while it's got this quicker heat up time, the payoff, or the trade-off is a quicker cool down time. So it's taking 36 hours to cool down.
Yeah, but
only an hour, which is still a long time.
That's pretty reasonable, though. I mean, you're still day two retained heat cooking
absolutely.
without
You're baking
a doubt.
the following day.
Oh yeah,
no problem. But,
absolutely.
and so it's something that we often put to customers. That we say, yes, the D105 has that epic 72-hour cool down.
Yeah.
Are you going to use it?
Yeah.
If you're going to use it,
Oh hell yes.
awesome, right? But if you're only going to fire it up on a Friday and cook pizza, do you need the D105? Maybe you would be better off with the P85 because you're not going to be wasting all this beautiful residual heat.
That's right.
And I
don't know. Look, I've had a couple of guys reach out, and they've got smaller ovens, not manufactured by yourself, and they don't have any retained heat properties. So they haven't learned that I guess that skill set or the additional benefits of having these very thick walls on an oven, and that's fine. That it wasn't a consideration for these folks when they bought their oven. No problems at all. I guess one of the advantages of this style of oven is that out of one firing, you've got enough heat for at least 2 days.
Yes.
And it's the versatility of it is quite something.
And it's a very different way of cooking, say, compared to what I would call a direct heat oven.
Yep.
So the ovens, say they're a metal box, say stainless
They're
steel
gorgeous.
lined, very pretty.
Yeah.
And their claim will be they'll heat up in 10 or 15 minutes.
Sure.
And they probably will.
Yeah.
But you're cooking from the direct heat of the fire.
Sure.
So if the fire flares up, everything burns. If the fire dies down, nothing happens. Your heat drops away almost instantly. Whereas what we're making is more of a traditional wood-fired oven, which is designed to take some time to heat up. You heat up this thermal mass, and you've talked about this in your previous episodes.
We have.
You're heating up this thermal mass, and then you're actually cooking from the heat that's retained in that mass. Even when you're doing live fire cooking,
Oh,
this
absolutely.
is the interesting thing. Even when you're doing live fire cooking, you're still using the heat that's in the thermal mass, and it's being added to by that additional radiant heat. My wife Kate is walking up with a bag. What's happening? She's saying cut. I refuse to cut.
Oh no, this is
We're rolling.
100% live.
What's this? What's in the bag? Oh, let's go.
Very kind of you.
Shall we go and sit down and eat?
Let's go do that. Thank you.
If you're enjoying this episode, sign up online at woodfiredoven.cooking and receive our free wood-fired oven resource pack. Follow Mark on Instagram at marks_wood-fired oven for recipes, tips and techniques to supercharge your fire cooking skills. Join our Wood-Fired Oven Chronicles Facebook group and meet some amazing fire cooking enthusiasts. Okay, back to the show.
This factory we're in here, this was the third one that we took on, and this is where we pack our P85 kits.
Okay.
So we do all the casting of them out the back.
Yep.
And then the castings come in.
Yep.
And we have a nice assembly line, and we finish them off. We turn them into a kit. ready. So we put all the additional things on. So
Yep.
the castings is only like not even half of the kit. You've got
Right.
all the insulation, you've got the fire bricks, you've got the blanket, the mortars,
Yep.
all of those additional things.
Lots in it. Yeah.
Lots in it. So they get turned into a complete kit, and then they come out of here and they head down to the factory we were in before, where we had all those standard kits packed on the racks,
Yep.
ready for customers to order.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
So that's what we do in this factory. That's our primary use is just packing P85s. Again, when I started, it was like everything in one space.
Yeah, you've
did
expanded, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so now we can afford, thankfully, and pretty much have to have dedicated areas to do each thing. So, for example, with packing a P85, you don't have to walk 20 metres to get a brick.
No, it's great.
It's right there.
It's all
like
here.
everything's there in arm's reach. You've got work cells effectively that all the packing is done in. So
I'm looking across to a shelf with, I don't know, maybe 50 boxes of ceramic fibre blanket.
Uh-huh.
Now,
Yep.
I'm pretty sure mine came with that.
yes.
What does that product do with my oven?
Okay.
Why do I need that?
That's an insulation material to keep the heat in the thermal mass. So in your case, you have the D105 brick oven. So your thermal mass is that 4.5 inches of refractory brick. So we're heating up all of that brick, and that heat is what's actually cooking the food.
Yep.
The blanket is what keeps the heat in the brick.
Okay.
So ceramic fiber blanket is a high temperature insulation material. It's soft, it's pliable.
Yeah.
So we can
It was
actually
easy to apply. I think we used was chicken wire, didn't we? Put it on the outside of it,
you
something
wrap
like that.
Yeah, you wrap the blanket around your dome. So you've got your brick dome. You wrap the blanket around
Yeah.
it, and then you actually hold it in place
Yeah.
with the chicken wire and the tie wire. That's part of the kit.
Yeah.
The chicken wire does hold down the blanket a bit.
Yeah.
It's the tie wire does most of
Yeah.
that, but then the chicken wire gives you reinforcing for your perlite render.
That's right. It
Yes.
provided a bit of a key to apply. It'd be very difficult to apply. I would think.
Without again, it would be like having concrete without reinforcing.
Yeah, right.
It's got no tensile
No,
strength.
yeah.
So the chicken wire gives you that tensile strength in your perlite render,
Yeah,
which
gotcha.
is
Right.
critical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All
yeah,
right.
So you see lots more. This is double deep racking. So I think we have something like 150 pallet spaces in this room, and so we have a
It's
double
huge.
deep reach forklift. Again, Grays Online,
Oh, is that right?
$3.5
Really?
grand. Yeah.
No way.
So it's brand new. It's like
Really?
$80,000.
You're joking.
We can't afford. So
Oh my god.
I'm not spending $80,000
Oh,
on
no.
a forklift. So anyway, Grays Online, guys, check it out.
Great, that's
That's the one thing that will come out of this podcast is Grays Online users will spike.
They will. Go grayesonline.com.au.
So we're basically trying to keep everything we need nice and close. So we've got. Remember being up on that mezzanine? We had like these door boxes. So we had pallets and pallets of those. But we keep 2 pallets down here, so
Okay.
that the team always
Yeah,
have
to-
enough,
to pack
and
a
then
full
we can
pallet,
restock
and then-
this.
yeah.
As soon as we get through the first pallet, we pull the pallet behind it forward.
Yeah, right.
But then we know, we need to restock that,
Yeah,
bring
great.
down another pallet. So
Okay.
just keeping the whole thing
So
flowing.
this looks pretty full to me. Can you see a day sometime soon where this is not going to be enough space for you?
It's already not enough space.
Okay.
No, there's the thing right now, and we haven't even gone through the other 4 factories. We've actually had to take on third-party warehousing in just 20 kilometres away.
Really?
You have Keysborough, and we've got 120 pallets in storage there.
Have you? Really?
Yeah, we just
Okay.
part of the reason for that is the sheer amount of stock that we need to keep as a buffer
Yeah.
in these uncertain
Certain
and I
times.
swear, if you say unprecedented, I will
yeah.
slap you. Okay.
Well, yeah, but that's right.
But it is like we have to keep so much stock because we don't know if there'll be shipping delays.
Yeah.
And
That
again,
makes a lot of sense. That gives you a good buffer for your production
correct.
line.
But
Yeah.
it requires a huge amount of space, and it ties up a whole lot of money. And
Yeah,
so
of
it is
course.
something that has to be managed really carefully.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
Yeah. But
Okay.
no, we've already run out of space, and whenever
What do these fire rings retail for?
these ones, I can't remember actually off the top of my head. I think they're around $2,500,
Yeah. Oh, geez.
including a base plate.
Wow, they're
Actually,
gorgeous.
one of the most expensive parts of it is the bowl.
Is it?
It's a 3mm thick stainless steel bowl made in Lilydale, right, just
Really?
nearby. It's a
Just
part
up
of
the road,
Victoria, and it's an expensive part to make.
Yeah, sure.
And look, I could probably import them in bulk and maybe pay, I don't know, half of that.
Yeah.
But I would prefer to keep as much manufacturing as I can here.
Yeah,
and there was
keep
a
it
company
in-house.
that could make them. And I said, fantastic, you make them. Great. So they're not, the fire pit's never going to be a cheap product, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But they are very,
What
very
a
beautiful.
presence. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I've only seen them online a year or two back, and in front of it, what's the diameter?
That's 1.3 meters
it's
external.
huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
gorgeous.
it's just nice to sit around as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
And it looks good. Here's the thing. The reason I developed it, if we want to talk about the fire pits.
Yeah, let's do it.
There's lots of fire
Which
pits
are no
out
longer
there. Why do we
available.
need another fire pit? Yeah, right. Why are we talking about it?
Hang on.
No,
Get hold of Ben. There's about 6 here. Yeah.
The thing with fire pits, there's a couple of things that bug me about most fire pits that I see. One is they're made out of Core-10 steel.
Okay.
Core-10 is amazing material. So it's basically shipping containers made of Core-10.
Oh, okay.
You see those rusty panels on the side of freeways, of
Yes.
architectural features.
Yes.
This rust finish.
Yep.
That's Core-10.
It's lovely, actually.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's
and I
gorgeous.
actually really like
Yeah.
it. And Core-10 steel is designed, it builds up a passive layer of rust that actually protects the steel underneath
Yeah,
it.
okay.
Right? What happens though if you burn off that layer of rust?
Okay.
You expose the next layer
Yeah,
of steel
and-
and
okay.
it keeps going. And so they burn out. You burn through them.
Right.
And you can have it thick. I mean, you can have a 10 mil Core-10 bowl, and if you use it regularly, you
It'll
will
burn it out.
eventually burn through it.
Interesting, yeah.
Whereas stainless is just there forever. It will discolor. It'll go lovely purples and yellows and stuff.
But it won't rust.
burn,
It won't
rust.
degrade
It won't,
away.
it won't degrade. So that was one of the things. But the other thing is most fire pits are kind of, they're not that exciting when they don't have a fire.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
They're kind of a little bit boring. And I really like the idea of having a suspended fire pit. And so, that's why we developed them. But we should stop talking about them because
We should, because you don't sell them anymore, do
not
you?
for the time being.
No, come on.
We've got to...
Oh, you're clearly not busy enough,
I mean,
Ben.
the same thing. We used to make these beautiful charcoal grills.
You did.
Like heavily insulated.
I was going to buy
solid
one. I was
stainless.
going to buy one, and then
Yeah.
you stopped selling them.
Well, they were like really commercial.
Yeah.
And we sold quite a few. We've actually had 2 inquiries in 2 days for them.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh man. But again, it was that whole thing of, all right, what's our available capacity in terms of what we can make?
Yeah.
What do we need to focus on?
Yeah.
Let's make sure we don't spread ourselves too thin.
Yeah.
And so we said, all right, we're going to shelve those for the time being, and we're going to
Ramp
focus
up
on
this stuff
ramp this
and-
up,
yeah,
and
here we
then we can always look at doing them again.
Yeah, yeah.
But so now
So
we're
we've walked across the road from your main office, and it's quite cool. It's a bit
bit
chilly,
chilly.
but we're walking into another warehousing space now. Okay, what have we got here? My
Well,
gosh, it's huge.
it's packed to the rafters, isn't it?
It is. Oh, my gosh.
Left and right. So this is one of our smaller factories, about 170 square meters, and I don't know.
It's not that small.
Americans, I don't know what that is in square feet. Don't ask.
It's huge, okay? It's
big
huge.
enough. And so this is where we pack our brick ovens. And so we actually have 2 factories
Yep.
for packing the brick ovens.
Okay.
So we do the first stage next door. We pack the first stage. I don't know why I walked you into this factory first.
But that's
I wasn't
okay.
very
It was
smart.
really handy. That's all right.
This is where we bring. Well, let's go in. Let's just jump
Okay.
next door.
All right,
We'll jump next door.
let's go backwards.
All right, this is where I should have taken you. So Sam here is packing
Sam.
a D105.
Ah, it's my baby.
So this is a domestic D105. So this is going to go somewhere in Australia, and Sam is presumably working very hard.
It looks gorgeous, Sam. How are you, Sam?
I'm very well,
Welcome
thank
to the
you.
podcast.
Great to be here.
Hey, good stuff. What's your role here, Sam?
So I'm a factory hand.
Yes.
So I do everything from doing the pours to putting bricks on kits to cutting bricks to welding to just about everything really.
So, a jack of all trades, eh?
He's got a beautiful voice too.
He does, doesn't he? He does. He really does.
Very flattering.
No, so this is where we pack the brick oven kits, and you can imagine.
I'm just looking at mine. Didn't come stamped with this nice blue little
this
sign.
is a nice little addition that we've done.
I'm looking,
that we've done
we're looking at a
thereafter.
whole bunch of bricks here with, and they've got Type 2, your logo.
Well, one of the things that, again, we're always looking at, all right, how can we improve? And so one of the things, we'll go and find some of those bricks. One of the things we were finding was people were placing the Type 2 bricks upside down in their trammel tool. And I was thinking, all right, how can I show them how to get that right every single time? And I did all these 3D models and drawings and tried to do it so I could put it in the written instructions. And then I thought, well, wait a second, how about we just get a label stamped on the back of every brick?
Yeah.
And
So
so, now
if
you know
it's
which
up
way
or
up
right-
it goes
yeah.
and which brick you're dealing
That's
with.
a nice, simple,
Yeah.
inexpensive solution.
Correct,
Well done.
correct. Well, yeah, we're trying. So we got pallets and pallets of fire bricks in here. And again, it's that whole, like production line where you start here.
I just love refractory bricks. There's something about them.
You grab. I love it. You grab your pallet, your stack of pallets. So you want it to be at a nice waist height. We don't want people leaning over down the ground.
Yeah, right.
And you bring it over and you grab your, the right amount of type 1 bricks. And you'll find these are on these spring-loaded stands. So as you take layers of brick off, it brings it up.
Oh, that's
so you're not
smart.
bending over.
Oh,
because
genius.
one of the biggest, so safety is massive for us. Marcus and I probably spend about a third of our time just on safety elements.
Because stuff's heavy. Everything in your factories are heavy.
Well, yeah, and you're dealing with like muscle strain, but also RSI.
Yeah, right.
So repetitive strain injury. So we're full on about that. So Sam will come and pack bricks, but he'll only do that for maybe 2.5 hours. And then he'll move on to something completely different so that he's using different muscles and we're not running that risk of a wrist injury or something, elbows getting sore, things like that. Because unfortunately, they're a heavy thing. Bricks are heavy. If I sold toothbrushes or something, it'd be much
wouldn't
easier,
have to worry.
frankly. Yeah.
That's right.
So they come through here. We've got electric pallet jacks. All the... Again, we're trying to keep the manual handling to a minimum.
Yeah.
So everything is moved around with electric pallet jacks, and they just move.
Is this from Graze?
Flow around. That was on Graze. Yes.
Well done.
I'm telling you, I wasn't lying to you at the start. Graze Online has supplied so many things to this place.
These stamps, though, what a good idea. A really simple
and honestly,
solution done well.
This was one of the things that our tyre supplier suggested was, and they're the third largest company in Thailand.
Are they?
Massive company, and so they've got whole R&D and quality departments, and we visited them. It was just amazing. That's a whole nother story.
That's awesome. But they're great to deal with, eh?
Lovely to deal with. Fantastic.
Great.
So fantastic quality, great service, and just fun. And it's a place I like to visit. So
Thailand's so good.
Anyway,
isn't it? Right.
So we go out of here. We packed all the bricks onto the pallet. And again, we used to do all of this in one space, but it was very congested and it just felt like you were sort of tripping over each other.
Yeah.
So we come out of here with all the bricks and we move into, so we're leaving that factory and we're just walking next door, like 5 meters. And here we are. And this
another huge factory.
This is where we finish the kit off. So as Sam is demonstrating for us here, all right, so we've got this
Sam,
C105.
You're doing a great job there, Sam.
Thank you very much. So he's just finishing this kit off, and so all the other components, again, they're all lined up. They're all here, ready to go. So he just grab that, the formwork,
recognise that
on.
too.
And there's 3D models of everything. So when it comes to packing it, it's not like, pack it however you like, Sam. You've probably got a good idea today.
Okay.
Do we have those around, Sam?
So you've worked out
here.
Okay.
So everything is specified. So particularly when someone's just starting. Like Sam doesn't need to look at this anymore.
No.
Do you, Sam?
It's great.
Nope. All over it.
So everything in your company is systematized, though, but that's great,
I wouldn't say,
most things.
I wish it was all
It's an evolution.
But the things that we're doing a lot of, like the casting process, that's had 17 revisions of the process, and everything's like finely tuned. And there's a roll, like roll 1, they're on the mixer, they're responsible to do X, Y, Z, and then roll 2, they have a different, different jobs, and they have to do them at different times, and it's all very. We've tried to make the processes easy to follow so that we can get someone on who's never had any experience in this stuff. Maybe never even worked in a factory before.
That's great.
And we can say, all right, we're going to get you to pack D95 kits today.
Brilliant.
This is the process. We're going to start you on the bricks. Once we've seen that you're good at that, then we can move you on to the next stage and so on. That's fun. So Marcus, I can't take too much credit. Marcus has driven a huge amount of this.
No, that's great.
I mean, I want to take the credit. In the end, I guess I get the credit.
That's your company, right?
But Marcus has just put in so much time and effort into improving our processes and recording them.
Yep.
So I sort of had the processes in place, but there was no recording of them.
Yeah, right.
And so Marcus has taken that on as a project and gone.
So with your systems and processes, do you have a system whereby you periodically sit down and look through all your systems and update them? Is it a 6-monthly process, a yearly process?
That's done, to be honest, constantly.
Yeah,
so we're looking at say the casting process, and we're always looking, all right, how can we improve that process? So just the other day, one of the guys was saying, look, the blades of terror, that cut the bottom of the bag.
Oh, yeah, they're terrible.
Like, they're not. We need them to cut the bag like slightly further because a little pocket of cast is getting stuck.
Yeah, right.
So we get that feedback and we go, all right, well, how can we then improve the process?
Yeah,
maybe
right.
it's a change to the system,
Yep.
the blades,
Yep.
or maybe it's a change to the way they're lowering it on, or something like that.
Okay, very interesting.
So we're outside our second last factory, and in here, this
Looks different.
It is different. Well, this again, completely packed, literally to the rafters.
It is too.
And this is our dispatch area.
Okay.
So we take our standard kit from over there.
Yep.
We finish it off.
Yep.
So we put all your extras in.
Yep.
We put your name on it, all your details, and we bring it over here and put it on the rack, ready to be picked up by a truck. Now that's the domestic ones.
I was about to say, mine didn't come in a nice wooden box bin.
Wooden crate. Aren't they beautiful?
They are gorgeous.
I
though.
love the crates. They're so neat.
They are.
So
Do you build them?
Well, that's a good question.
Thank you.
Currently, we have a local manufacturer making these crates for us.
Oh, beautiful.
At a phenomenal cost. Right,
Yeah.
one crate, straight up, cost $232 plus GST for
ouch.
just for the packaging.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
And it's going up. And it continues to go up.
Man, alive.
Now, what you might not have noticed next door is there were pallets and pallets of plywood up on the racking. So I'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing here is you're seeing stacks of oven kits, and these are destined for America.
Yep, okay.
So these are our export kits.
Okay.
Now, we could pack our domestic ovens, so Australian-bound ovens could go into these wooden crates. They fit, and that's fine. But there would be this cost associated where you're paying for this wooden crate.
Yeah.
So I'd have to jack up the cost
Of course.
the kit. Whereas where the domestic kits go onto a heavy duty pallet and then it's strapped and shrink wrapped.
Yeah.
And they get to all of our customers in one piece.
Yeah, and you
every
haven't
time.
had any problems like that at all.
Yeah, yeah.
But these are going on a ship, right?
These are going on a ship and then they're going thousands of kilometres across America.
Yeah,
And so we need to know that they're not going to tear the wrap or something on that journey. There's just too many exchanges where it gets taken out of a container, then it gets put on a truck, then it gets taken off the truck and put in a warehouse.
Some
and
forklift
so on.
will go through the side of it
Correct.
after the
Whereas
12th forklift.
with our shipments around Australia, we put it on a truck. That'll go to a central warehouse, say in Melbourne, and then it will go directly to Brisbane.
Yep.
And won't have 3 changeovers in between.
Yeah.
These crates they're expensive, but they are necessary. And
Boy,
I had
do
a
they
guy-
look good. They look good, though.
I had a customer.
Wow.
I think it was yesterday. He called and he said, "I've got all this plywood left over from the crate because it's CNC machined plywood
Is it?
that locks together. It's got these metal clips that lock it together. It's very clever." And
Gotta go
I
have a look
can't
at
take
these
credit.
clips.
I can't take credit for the design.
Oh, look at that. That's
So
amazing.
LJB are our crate manufacturers.
Fantastic.
And these just snap on.
Do they?
Oh, yeah.
Geez, that's amazing.
So there's no nails.
Really?
We don't have to. We used to use nail guns, and you had to wear hearing protection and safety glasses in the factory because there could be a nail flying around. But now we just have these clips, and you just go donk, and they just
That's great,
they
isn't
just
it?
lock on.
And it's nice and easy for the customer at the other end to
Correct. They
disassemble
just
the
get a screwdriver and just go pop, and off they come. So they are really cool. But yeah, they get left with all this plywood, and they're like, "Man, plywood's like $100 a sheet. I don't know what I'm going to do with this."
Hang on to it.
Yeah. So anyway, it's nice, and we've seen some pretty cool things that they've done with them, like
Oh,
they've made
neat.
chicken coops and cubbies.
Oh, that's
and-
great.
yeah, anyway.
Oh, that's great. Good solution. Yeah, really good solution.
Yeah, so we move in here. Now, I used to have that office where our reception is, with the lovely stone wall.
Where I've just had this gorgeous
and the
burger that your
fireplace.
lovely wife just provided us.
That's where we had our lunch.
That was a nice
It's
burger.
a nice place to sit, right?
It's a lovely place. So that was your office?
That was my office when I was doing all the sales. And then Jeremy's come on board and he's taking care of sales and customer support. And so that's his office now. So I've been relegated to this area. Now, I say relegated, I like it in here. Right? This is my
This is
little
your
room.
space. This is Ben's spot.
This is Ben's,
Oh, hang on,
Ben's little room.
it's not a regular office, though, to be fair, is it?
There is I've got my desk in the corner.
Oh, you
here.
have too.
And
You got your photocopier there, and
Got
is that your car in the
that's
picture?
a friend's car that
That's a friend's
nearly got
car.
swallowed up by a lake, and
Oh.
it's got some photos of adventures that I've been on.
Are you
But-
a bit of a photographer, Ben?
No, this was actually I took that photo there.
Gorgeous.
But the other ones were taken by a chap I was diving with. This is scuba.
Oh, neat.
scuba.
Oh, neat. Now, gorgeous
I
photos.
took that one as well.
Did
that's,
you?
Yeah, that's a big cave in Vietnam.
Oh,
but
gorgeous.
what's behind us is much more interesting.
Well, that is huge. Okay, so we're looking at a massive machine here. It's huge. What is it?
Okay, so it is a gantry router, but it's a CNC milling machine.
Okay.
Okay, and you may notice the sticker on it.
Grace
Online.
the listeners are going to get Grace Online.
And so basically, this is the reverse of a 3D printer. So you draw up a 3D part in CAD.
Yep.
And then you put a block of, let's say, plastic
Yep.
on this, and you lock it onto the table.
Yep.
And then you can create in CAD, in the program, you can create a tool path. And that is, it will machine your part out of that block of plastic. It'll pick up, so you see all those
So it picks
terrifying
it up.
looking tools?
Yes.
It'll pick up one of those tools
Gotcha.
that you've told it. You
Yep.
said, I want you to grab tool number 19,
Okay.
which is like a 10 mil end mill,
Yep.
something like that, or a fly cutter or something. And then it will come and it'll run a CNC controlled path
Okay.
and cut out the
And
part
cut-
for you.
okay.
So the idea of this machine is to actually help us, it's going to do a few things. One of the things is it's going to help us develop new products. So if I decide, I want to make, for example, something that everyone's been asking for is a bigger precast oven. Right,
Okay.
the P115.
The
maybe.
P115.
That's a real mouthful. I don't know. We might have to give that one a name. Like Jeff.
Jeff.
Anyway,
Velociraptor. Yeah.
so I'll be able to machine the molds out of
Okay.
this. So the masters, before we start taking fiberglass parts, we can start here.
Gotcha.
And I can make them with this machine. So I'll run you a little program. So we're on here. So I'm going to tell the machine to bring us, I'm going to 50% rapids, and I'm going to tell the machine to bring us tool number 9.
Okay.
All right?
So you look at it. Oh my gosh, it's moved.
It is terrifying.
So the tools are spinning around. It's the machine selecting a particular tool which you've just selected. Oh wow, that's incredible. Hello.
And so that's just a tiny little
Yeah,
program.
right, okay.
And that's just one I use for measuring tools. So I can bring them over and I can touch them off on this probe here.
Yes. Okay.
Anyway, so that's fun.
Okay. So going forward, molds. That's where you think most of the use might be.
Well, that's one use for it, is making new mold masters.
Yeah.
So if I decide, I'm going to make this new precast component, I need to start with a shape.
Yep.
And look, to be honest, when I made the very first flue gallery, how did I make the first one? I didn't have this thing. What I did was I started off with a massive block of plaster.
Oh, did you?
I cast a block of plaster in the very rough shape that I was after.
Okay.
It was very angular.
Yeah.
It was really rough. And then I got an angle grinder and a sanding disc, and I sanded it for about 3 weeks.
Did you really?
To get the shape. It took
Is
me
that
ages.
right?
And so I made the part that I was after out of plaster.
Okay.
But I did it all very manually.
Yeah.
Like all the shaping was all done by little old Ben hanging off the back of an angle grinder with dust going everywhere.
So that's like your mother mold. That's like your mother
I think
master, and then everything is duplicated off the same thing.
Correct,
So if you get that wrong, everything
follows. So you've got to get that right, and that's why it takes a tremendously long period of time to go from an idea of like, people are like, why don't you make a bigger precast oven? Because it takes ages. It really is a huge investment in time to make those parts. But I love it. And honestly, if you said, Ben, everything else is being taken care of, Canada is being sorted, you don't need to do any of that.
No.
I would happily just be playing on this machine all day.
Yeah, great.
So anyway,
all right, very good.
But the other thing we can do with it is we can make those plywood cases. So we love the guys
okay.
at LJB.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
We're bringing in our own plywood from Thailand.
Okay.
And we're going to be machining. I'd buy it Australian made,
Yeah.
but we don't make crate quality plywood.
Really?
We make super high quality plywood for acoustic linings and architectural finishes.
Yeah.
But if I was to make a crate out of that, it might cost $1,000.
Yeah, okay.
So we're
So you're having to import that into.
we're importing that
Okay.
not because I want to, but because Thailand, they've got fantastic quality assurance processes, lovely people.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Great.
we're going to be making our own crates.
Well, that's
soon.
exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so that's
great.
fun.
All right, very
and
good.
we've got another look. There's the one in the background there, much older. This one
Kinda
is
looks
the
similar
same
to this
thing.
other big beast
It's
here.
another milling machine.
Yeah.
I'm semi-addicted to milling machines.
Yes, it looks like
But
it. It's in your office.
This one will do steel.
Okay.
So this one is designed for wood and plastics, foam, things like that.
Yeah.
This one here can mill steel.
Okay.
So I could put a big block of steel or aluminium in the vise and run a tool path and cut that out.
Right.
So that's
Okay.
I haven't done a lot of that yet, but again, very excited to do
Yeah,
it.
that's it.
And once again, you'll see
Grace
the sticker.
online.
Grace
Grace online.
and that's the sort of the big daddy of all of them, the old one,
me.
which is the manual mill. And so I use that for machining bits and pieces. as you can see, I do love tools.
You do love tools, and you like tools in your office.
I do.
Which is kind of
I
cool.
will move my office.
It is kind of
But
cool.
Once this thing starts machining plywood and there's dust just everywhere, I will probably move my office.
It's almost more exciting than in my office. It's really exciting. Yeah, very cool. All right.
All right. So upstairs, loads of storage up there. But where I'll take you now is our last factory.
Okay. So how many have we been in already?
6.
Okay, my goodness.
They're not, and look, they're not for the listeners. Like they're not like these huge places. They're relatively small factories, I would say. But
all squished together, you've got a fair amount of floor space, haven't you?
I think a question that I get all the time is people, I'll show people around and they say, "Oh, why don't you get one big factory? Put it all under one roof." And look, it's a good question. Like, why not? And there's a couple of reasons I haven't done that. Firstly, like you've sort of noticed, it's been a very incremental process.
Yeah.
It's taken, 11 years
Yeah.
to reach this point. But the other thing about it, to just jump into a big factory right from the start, it's just not feasible.
No, it's not.
But if things change, so right now we're selling a ferocious amount of ovens, but if things were to change and maybe sales slow down, well, if you've got one big factory, you are stuck with it.
You are stuffed.
Whereas if you've got smaller factories, you can let one go.
Yes, you could.
Yeah.
That's smart.
And so you've got sort of a bit of flexibility.
Yeah, right.
Where you can say, you know what, this
That's
seventh
smart.
factory here,
protects
it's nice,
you.
but
that's
we
great.
can save that money if we had to.
Yeah, gotcha.
Thankfully, we've never had to do that.
That's good.
But I'm not so, proud as to say, well, that would never happen to us.
So we've walked into the 6th factory now.
This is the 7th. This is the 7th.
Sorry, this is the 7th.
7th and final.
My gosh. Okay. Oh my gosh.
So this factory, you mentioned we walked into that workshop and you said, "Oh, look at that table! Look at the size of that table."
Oh, I'm looking at that table.
That's the welding table here.
The mother of all tables.
Yes. So this is our jigging table for welding.
Okay.
It actually came off a giant milling machine, so it's got a dead flat cast iron surface.
Oh, has it? Oh,
which doesn't, so welding spatter doesn't stick to it.
Gotcha.
And we can set things out really accurately. So this is where we make all our oven stands. So we can make our steel frames for the pre-cast oven.
Gotcha.
We do that in here.
Do you make steel stands for the brick ovens?
We don't. The reason being, the oven has to be built on a reinforced concrete bench top.
Gotcha.
And for the brick ovens, and that in itself weighs over a ton. And then you have the weight of the oven.
That's right.
So all of a sudden you're looking at over 2 tons that you're supporting. And to do that on a steel frame, it can be done. The oven that's out the front, the D105 out the front of the showroom, it's on a steel frame.
Okay, is it?
Yeah, but it's a phenomenally heavy duty. Like it's wild.
Yeah,
Big, heavy legs on it. I think there's probably about 300 kilos of steel in the stand.
Is there?
So to actually make it and sell them would just be not
make it
practical.
viable. It's not really viable.
I encourage people who think about building a brick oven, even if you're thinking we might move out of here one day, build it in place on a concrete stand, and just sell it with the house.
Oh, absolutely.
And then build another one.
Look, that's exactly what my wife and I did when we said, should we get a smaller one? Should we take it with us if we're ever to move? A, don't really want to move, and B, it'd be a great fixture to sell with the house. No question about it.
Absolutely.
That's great.
So this is where we do a lot of our welding. Now this will actually move quite soon. We're going to move all the welding out to the back of our original factory. We've got a lot of space there. So I think it's one of, you were asking before about do you often look at your processes and reassess them and change them? And we do. And maybe it's not the most formalised process of, okay, chaps, we're going to...
It's organic. It's more organic,
process revision day today.
That's right.
We look at it, we say, okay, we used to, at the back of that factory where the guys were doing the fiberglassing, we're going to move that fiberglassing into the spray booth. Then that frees up that area. Then we can start thinking about doing other things in there. So it's always, as we grow, we sort of fill a space and then we refine all of our processes going, well, we've got more space now. What do we want to move? What's not working? What's working well? And we shuffle things around. And then in the back corner here, there's this weird looking red thing. Yeah, it's massive.
Is that one of your biggest tools you have?
It would actually be our physically largest tool. And it's not functional yet. So this is a 1992 Japanese laser cutter.
Is this?
It's a Amada LCV 6612 for those out there who are passionately interested.
You could build a battleship on that.
in very small pieces.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's massive.
No, it is a beast. But here's the thing.
It's
And you're like,
huge.
why did you get this?
Yeah. Why'd you get this,
It was
Ben?
$2,000.
From Grace?
Grace Online. Are you seeing a pattern here?
I'm seeing a pattern. You sit at home on your phone just
This
going,
thing-
buy now, buy now, buy now,
it's
buy
so
now.
bad. Oh,
my gosh.
No, but I
Does it work? Does this work for $2,000?
Apparently. So it cost me more than that to get it delivered because it's 8.5 tons.
Oh,
Just
is
that
it?
part is 8.5
Oh
tons.
my gosh.
So anyway, the reason I bought it, so several reasons. One is imagine it is working. We do a lot of laser cutting.
Yeah.
So we could buy our own stainless steel. So we could find a manufacturer of stainless steel plate, buy it, bring in container loads of that
and
to
just
cut our oven
whiz it
doors.
through here and-
Great.
yeah,
So
gotcha.
we'd be saving some money, but also dealing with that supply chain issue of being reliant on another company
Yep.
to make sure they have all their ducks in a row. They've got their supply chains
Yep,
locked down.
that's right.
We could, I guess, cut that issue out by doing that
It's
ourselves.
part of your strive for that self-sufficiency, which seems to be a pattern here.
And I'm not saying I want to do everything, but I'm more than happy to provide work for companies here. But I'm not like, oh no, I want all of the money or something. It's not it.
No.
But it's like, all right, this is something we do a lot of. The opportunity came up, and so if we can do our own laser cutting, then fantastic. But here's the other thing: I like learning. I love learning, and I think that maybe the best example I've got of it is that old mixer. When I bought that mixer on Grace Online, it was a rusty pile of junk, really, and I went to collect it. And it was still installed. It was on this massive steel frame. If you want to see it, jump on our Instagram and go to our stories.
Okay.
Like the
Yeah,
favourite
yeah.
stories,
Yep.
and there's a whole series on the mixer.
And what's
it
your
is-
Instagram account there,
It
Ben?
is the Firebrick Co.
The Firebrick Co. It is on Instagram. Go check them out and follow
Check
them.
it out.
Yeah.
So if you want to watch someone recondition an old mixer, then
Yeah,
it's all on
there.
there. But I remember going to pick it up, and I saw it in this factory up on this stand, and I was like, "What have I done?" Oh no! It was just. It had like. It had these massive control systems, like panels and panels of electronics and wires, tiny wires running everywhere. And I was like, just trying to picture myself mapping all the locations of the wires and everything. And as I left, so I just went to check it out. I'd already paid for it. And I left, I got to these traffic lights, and I nearly threw up.
Oh, did you?
I was like so nauseous because I was like,
What have I
what have you
done?
done?
What have I done?
This is
Oh.
way too big a project. It was the feeling, I would say it was the physical feeling of being out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Completely
Yeah.
out. In your comfort zone, you're not nauseous,
Yeah.
you're not stressed,
Yeah,
but you're not learning anything either. Out of your comfort zone, oh man, that's where the learning happens.
that's great.
But geez, it's
Yeah.
uncomfortable. So anyway, this laser cutter is that. I learned a huge amount from restoring the mixer.
Yeah.
How to restore a gearbox.
Yeah, fantastic.
I can replace tapered bearings.
Really?
Now, yeah, you need
Don't even
liquid
know what that is.
nitrogen.
That's what-
It's awesome. So I learned all this cool stuff
right.
from that process.
Yeah, great.
So I bought this because in it I saw an opportunity to learn something else.
Okay.
And so I'll get some experience with this maybe in optics, maybe just in control systems or
sure,
something like that. That I don't know. I don't necessarily need.
No,
but
it's a slow burn project for you, isn't
it's a
it?
slow burn project. It's a passion thing
Yeah,
for me.
nice,
It's something
good
that I can learn something new. And
That's
I
kind
think
of exciting,
I think a
though.
lot of people can like even building the ovens.
Yeah.
Working with concrete for
Yeah,
the
first time, me.
It's something brand new, and we've
Absolutely.
got some great instructions on helping you through
That's
that.
great. And it's not that difficult.
No.
You just got to kind of commit to doing it.
You commit to do it, and then you go through step by step. This is how we do it. Oh, okay, it's not so bad. But at the end of it, there's this real feeling of accomplishment. And that's actually, there was a lady on Instagram. She put up all these finished photos of her build, and she was so pumped, man. She was
that's
just
just
like,
how awesome
I
is
am
that?"
so stoked with this. I'm so proud of this. I had never done concreting before. I'd never done tiling. I'd never done any of this stuff. And look at this thing. How cool is it? And
Isn't that great?
It is.
That's what it's about.
yeah.
That's
So
fantastic.
I'm passionate about that for my customers, but also for me.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's very self-satisfying, isn't it?
So that.
Well, that's a beast.
Thus-
Well, you're going to have fun with that.
Oh dear.
Oh my gosh. Well, good luck with it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, thus endeth the tour.
Well, that is a phenomenal tour. Thank you very much, Ben. And it's wow, what an honour. Thanks for joining me on this episode of this fascinating factory tour at the Firebrick Company and this amazing place that Ben
and Kate and their team have put together over the last few years. Stay safe, have fun, and go cook with fire. If you've enjoyed this episode, please make sure you follow the Wood Fired Oven podcast in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favourite podcasting app. Please consider posting a review on Apple Podcasts, as this really helps the show. Don't forget to check out woodfiredoven.cooking for more tips, tricks, and advice on cooking with fire. You can also see full episode notes and links. You can also post a question which I may feature on the show. I'm also on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, so head over to your favourite social platform and get in touch. Thanks again for listening. Catch you next time.